Good afternoon, folks. Too loud, oh my goodness. Okay. Very happy to see those of you who are still awake and with us here, which is great. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the Leah Meyer Austin Award and the journey that the two colleges who won the award, the journey that they took to get to where they are in winning the Leah Meyer Austin Award. I just want to give you, I'm Rachel Singer from Achieving the Dream, Senior Fellow at Achieving the Dream. And I want to give you a little background on the Leah Meyer Austin. It was established in 2008, and the award is given in honor of Leah Meyer Austin, who some of you met yesterday at our evening reception. She's the former Senior Vice President for Program Development for the Lumina Foundation, and she really was the architect of Achieving the Dream. She is currently a board member at Achieving the Dream, which is wonderful for us because she brings all her knowledge and experience to our board meetings on a regular basis, and we really get to benefit from her wisdom, her knowledge, and the history of Achieving the Dream. The award was established to recognize outstanding achievement in supporting and promoting student success and equity through the creation of a culture of evidence, continuous improvement, systemic institutional change, broad engagement of stakeholders, and equity, with particular attention to low-income students and students of color, which is something that we're all familiar with in Achieving the Dream and the work that we do on a regular daily basis. The winning institutions also have strong supporting data that show evidence of sustained improvement in student success and a reduction in achievement gaps over at least 2 years. And as you know from the other day, from last evening, I guess it was already, our opening session, we had a very strong pool of applicants, and it was very difficult for us to decide on just one college. So these two colleges were outstanding, and it was really very tough for us to say that just one college won. And so in an unprecedented move, we made a decision to award the Leah Meyer Austin Award to two colleges. To Bunker Hill Community College and President Pam Edinger, who's sitting over there, and Montgomery County Community College, Karen Stout, who's sitting with her team over there. The value of the ATD model is the ability for colleges to tailor their approach to student success and institutional reform according to the specific needs and culture of the college and the specific needs of their student body. Both Bunker Hill and Montgomery County Community Colleges have applied the Achieving the Dream model through large-scale reform and more targeted interventions for specific student populations. I would like to point out especially how the strategic engagement has been for what it's been like for these colleges, both internal and external. The colleges address change head-on, encouraging and training staff and faculty to own the change. It becomes part of the culture at their college. In this way, both colleges have been strong leaders and have been leadership colleges in the ATD movement. Equity has been a top priority for both colleges and seen it in every juncture and everything they do. Although the two colleges have distinctly different student bodies and have tackled achievement gaps in their own way, both have shown that dedication and innovation can effectively reduce these gaps. Best of all, they both have data to back it up. So to start, what I'd like to do is ask Bunker Hill Community College and their panel to come up to do their presentation, and you'll learn a little bit about the journey they've taken in winning the Leah Meyer Austin. And then I did forget. Got it? Good. So, yes.
Here we go. Good afternoon, everybody. How was lunch? Way too filling. for coffee for the last 15 minutes, so I hope you found some. I'm Pam Edinger. I'm the college president at Bunker Hill. I do have to confess, though, this is my first semester, so I get to say that I'm new. So if I messed up any of the names when I introduce my team, I'm forgiven, at least for the moment. So I have to my left our Dean for Humanities and actually Learning Communities. That's been her life for the last couple of years, Dean Lori Catalozzi. And next to her is our Director of Learning Communities. She's our expert on the ground, has done a lot of the logistics in putting this program together, Leah. And next to her are two of our faculty leaders, Professors Aurora Bautista and Professor Lloyd Sheldon Johnson. I got it right this time, I didn't get it right last night. And then we have to his left, our Associate Vice President, Jan Bonanno. And I'm going to point to the table to my left over there, our data god. David Levitt is our Institutional Research Executive Director, and our Communications Director, Karen Norton. It is a large team. It's a large team because we needed enough leaders to spread around the college to make sure that each part of our constituency is engaged, and that they have someone to hold their hand and walk with them as we go down this path. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over, actually, to Lori, and let her talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the program.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to start with some demographics about Bunker Hill Community College, so you can have a context of the world in which we do this work. We are the largest community college in Massachusetts with 14,000 students. We're located in the heart of Charlestown, which is in Boston. We have a campus in nearby Chelsea and satellite locations in East Boston, Malden, and Boston's South End. We are one of the most diverse institutions of higher education in New England. 60% of our students are students of color, and more than 800 are international students from more than 100 countries. Our three largest populations are Hispanic, African American, and white. 57% are women. The average age is 27, and more than half of our students work full or part-time while attending college. So one of the questions that we get often is, why did you choose learning communities as the cornerstone of your student success agenda? And really there are two reasons for that. First of all, we chose learning communities because the college has a very rich history of learning communities that dates back to its opening in 1973, primarily through our ESL department, where faculty combine instruction in ESL language with courses in electronics or in other career fields. And then the second reason is that we had strong national data showing that learning communities were a high-impact practice that were worth investing in. Our learning communities are part of an interwoven set of strategies that you can see represented by the gears here. So our learning communities are supported by integrated student services and student development outcomes. We incorporate peer mentors into our learning communities and also success coaching. Our learning communities are built on a foundation of student learning outcomes assessments. We have a set of core outcomes for our learning communities that you'll hear a little bit about soon. And finally, we support learning communities with robust professional development that's inquiry-based and faculty and staff-driven. I'm going to call up Leah to tell you a little bit more about the broad engagement in our learning communities and our most recent efforts to scale learning communities.
Since 2007, the college has developed 125 learning communities, and we are projected to serve about 5,500 students during this academic year. When we began piloting, we had 8 grade faculty and 220 students in our first cohort, and we have continuously scaled the program over that time. To date, more than 375 faculty and staff, including 80% of our full-time faculty and 20% of our adjunct faculty, have participated in the design and implementation of learning communities and our professional development. In 2012, the college was awarded an Achieving the Dream Catalyst Fund grant, which is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And the goal of that grant is to go from serving a lot of students to serving most students through our learning communities, with a particular emphasis on expanding to more part-time students and more students of color. To support scaling, the college is redefining the integration of student support services into learning communities, We're scaling accelerated models that have been proven to accelerate students through our developmental pathways. And we're strengthening community partnerships to really place the emphasis on culturally responsive pedagogy integrated into the program. Whether our students are enrolled in our learning community seminars, which focus on the first-year experience transition, or interdisciplinary learning community clusters, all students in learning communities are engaged in a curriculum that embeds these 5 outcomes. And they may be familiar to you because they draw from the AAC&U's LEAP essential learning outcomes for student learning.
So we have a few data slides to present to you, and these data slides come courtesy of an external report, actually, case study that was commissioned by Achieving the Dream back in the fall of 2013. So Derek Price and his colleagues at OMG did this data analysis for us. And what we found was that on a number of key student success indicators, our learning communities were having a significant positive impact on students. The first place in which we are having a positive impact is developmental English. So students enrolled in our learning communities are more likely to complete developmental English within 1 year. And this is true whether students are within 2 levels of developmental English or just require 1 level of developmental English. And this is true for both our first-year seminar students and our learning community cluster students, compared to similar students who are not in either learning community. Same is true for developmental reading, where learning community students are more likely to complete 2 levels of developmental reading within 1 year. And developmental math, where students enrolled in learning communities were more likely to complete 2 levels of developmental math within 1 year. True for both seminar and cluster students. Completion of college-level courses, where learning community seminar students in particular were more likely to attempt and complete college-level courses within 2 years. And we credit this to the success coaching that's embedded within that first-year seminar for accomplishing that goal, specifically for our seminars. We didn't see any statistically significant difference in our cluster students on this measure. In terms of persistence, our learning community students are more likely to persist both semester to semester and year to year. And then finally, our learning community students earn more credits within their first year and at the end of their second year. What we've seen, what we found, and what we've experienced is that cultural change, which is what we're talking about here, requires analyzing the evidence, courtesy of David, learning how to use that evidence to inform practice. It requires keeping equity outcomes front and center. It requires a focus on teaching and learning, and time and space for faculty and staff to connect and to reflect. It requires holistic and interwoven interventions that involve a breadth and depth of faculty and staff. And it requires committed and collaborative leadership at all levels of the institution. We've invited Aurora Bautista and Lloyd Shelton Johnson to talk a bit more about some of those elements of the program.
So as faculty, the question is, when I'm looking at the data, what does it mean to me? So usually when you're an early adopter of any initiative in the college, you basically are a risk taker. You don't know what's going to happen. You're just saying, yes, I'll try something new. Now, it's rewarding when, anecdotally, you have evidence. But more so, with this kind of data, it becomes more stimulating to actually continue the work. Our IR actually are able to track the cohort of our LCs, our learning communities longitudinally, for both retention and course completion over time. Now, so what do we do with this as faculty? We basically meet as in our meetings, in our summits, so that we can review the data and identify the inequities in achievement, so that eventually we can design curriculum that is actually targeted. And the kinds of curriculum that we've targeted are those that focus on urban males, STEM, veterans, and students in developmental math. So when we think about it, quantitative data is really useful in telling when things are working, when the strategies are working. But for a social scientist like me, it's really much more enriching when you have qualitative data that actually starts to inform us how and why these learning communities have an impact. So we do this through surveys, through focus group discussions, and interviews. And through these, we're able to confirm that the outcomes that we have created, those that you saw earlier, critical thinking, integrated communication, intercultural knowledge and competence, teamwork, reflection, and self-assessment, that we are meeting these outcomes. And so these outcomes actually are a framework for our curricular development that integrate both student development and academic outcomes.
Good afternoon. In order to be successful, students need to be supported throughout their academic tenure. So our learning communities set high expectations and provide high levels of integrated support. And I stress, high levels of integrated support. Our asset-based approach is learner-centered and it is holistic. We use success coaches, we use peer mentors, and we use all of the campus resources to help students achieve their personal, academic, and career goals. So our work validates our students, and we validate them by using culturally rich curricula that is enhanced by some of our partnerships. And currently we have a partnership with the Museum of African American History, located in Boston and also on the island of Nantucket, and with the Asian American Studies program at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. And again, I personally can attribute a lot of the successes with a lot of our marginalized students with the efforts that are extended and the support that they receive from all of the resources of the college. So it's not just focused in one place, it's an integrated effort. So everyone is working together to create these seamless support systems that really, really help our students to achieve.
So through our Learning Community Program, we really recognize that teaching and learning is a social endeavor. And learning communities foster that kind of student-centered approach that is collaborative and experiential, and we know that that increases student success. And we shared with you some of the data that we've seen where learning community students are outperforming other students on campus. But it's really important to emphasize that we recognize that those numbers are important and that they are the results we want to see, but those results are really not the target, and they're really not the goal. The goal is to create the most vibrant, learner-centered, active, engaging classroom environment that we can. And those numbers are really just the symptom or the byproduct of that engaged student experience that we're creating in the classroom. So we've really emphasized throughout this program, and especially in our professional development, best practices in teaching and learning, and letting those best practices in teaching and learning drive the form and the content of the program. Learning communities provide a platform where students can connect with faculty and with their peers to a greater extent, and in doing so, that it improves their academic achievement. And the integrative curriculum embedded in our learning communities helps these students to see connections between their courses, and also to see connections between what they're doing on campus and what they're going through in their personal lives, and how that relates to their personal career and academic goals. This kind of structure models the interdisciplinary thinking that can help students successfully grapple with the complex issues of our time. So in academia, we like to take things and put them into silos and departments and disciplines, and when our students walk off campus, they walk into an interdisciplinary, multifaceted world. So in the classroom, we needed to model for them ways of thinking that integrate multiple perspectives and that integrate all of these artificial designations we've made where we compartmentalize pieces of information. And we need to, through this process, model for them how they can use those skills to achieve the goals that they have in their lives, and for our students to overcome some really significant obstacles and barriers that many of them face. The college has implemented a robust professional development program to support learning community pedagogy and practice, which is called the Innovative Teaching and Learning Series. And this is actually steered by a committee of faculty and staff called the Learning Community Think Tank. Over the past year, we had about 124 full-time and part-time faculty and staff participate in the program. And we really focus on making sure that our professional development is driven by what the faculty are seeing in the classroom and responding to the needs that they see our students have and responding to the needs our students are telling us that they have. So because faculty are driving the program, we've had a lot of faculty participate, and we've really not had to deal with the issue of faculty buy-in. Because they have ownership of the program and they're driving the direction of professional development, the buy-in is inherent in the way that we've structured the program. So we find that more often than not, we have more faculty in the room than we can accommodate in the chairs in the room, and we're constantly seeing a lot of interest from faculty in engaging in the program.
Good afternoon. One of the strongest points of Achieving the Dream is that they wanted to set out to make what they called systemic institutional change. This was not just a grant that we were to be given, but we were to look at our institutions and see how they would be very different places after our involvement with the actual funding part of the grant. So I think that by now, what we've learned over the years and presenting across the country is that many colleges now do have college-wide planning. And to some extent, that planning is tied to the budget. And for us, I'm trying to focus on some of the strengths that enabled us to have the data that you see here and enabled us to, have our learning communities become a very important part of our culture at Bunker Hill so that when the grant went away, the work didn't go away. And during our, retreats that we have and planning, we set shared goals. And when we work as a community to set shared goals and we make student success one of those goals, we all begin talking the same language, right? I mean, that's what happens when we get together in a room and talk about why it is we're here, and Achieving the Dream has challenged us to do that as well. So the other strength of what we did when we got the Achieving the Dream grant was to take other grants that we received at the same time and integrate them so that you don't have different initiatives around the college. Now, it still happens to some extent, but we're still, working on it, trying to pull all of these initiatives together so that we have one strong student success initiative. And I think that that's one of the things that we did well. We also branded this work. We called it the Engaged Campus. So it had a name, and everybody on campus knew what it meant. And we talked about it everywhere we went, in all our forums. Now we're moving toward what we call Life Map, that the President may speak a little bit more about, but when you brand something and the community knows what it means, it helps. It helps people to understand. We also set out, as my colleague said, to integrate student and academic affairs in a way that they had not been integrated before. I think those of us in student affairs know that, and those of you in academic affairs, that we've often remained separate in our work. So we took this opportunity to make some integration that would not go away at the end of the grant. And the one thing that we're learning now under our new president's leadership is the work doesn't stop there. The model is never made. It's a constant process. So while we're, really experiencing great success, we realize that we just can't keep doing the same things over and over to maintain that success, because things do continue to change. And the last thing I want to say is that to get people involved in these initiatives, to make them systemic, to make them so that they don't go away, because it's the people that stay, right, to continue the work, and the processes that stay that they leave behind. We really got involved in bringing them to the table in a real way. So they weren't just part of a grant that went away after 5-6 years. So when we reached out to our student service staff to get them involved with our academic affairs and our faculty, we actually did this in a deliberate manner. We called them and we said, come to the table with your academic colleagues. And, personal calls from the deans and, you know, people that they normally don't hear from meant a lot in getting them involved at the start. And it continues to mean a lot as we call them forward to do new things and get involved in new initiatives. And finally, I personally think, even though, you know, we have leaders that give their staff credit, I think that we've all learned over the years, and I've learned from my many years of involvement here with Achieving the Dream, that leadership does matter. You know, we just went through a presidential process, and if we didn't bring somebody in who gets it and who has the vision and the new insights and sees where we need to go, we probably would start floundering. I think it does matter. And the different leadership, you know, when you think about people you work for, you can see that that direction is important to this work. I guess with that, I want to introduce again President Edinburgh, who continues to provide the environment, the dialogue for this type of success at Bunker Hill.
Well, folks, as you can see, my work is done. I work with the most amazing group of people. I have been at Bunker Hill since July. I was in California for 8 years before that. And then prior to the 8 years, I started out in Massachusetts. So this is my third decade in community college work. And frankly, the farther you move up that ladder, and sometimes I don't really think it's a ladder, the more you realize that you're moving away from the classroom, you're getting more and more detached from the students. And what you're really doing a great deal is to entrust your students that you care about so much to folks that you trust so much. It is easy to come in as a new leader and say, I've got great ideas, I know how this works, I've seen it for 30 years, let me tell you. And the hardest part over the last 6 months is to sit and watch and to create outside of the learning community's environment an atmosphere and an ecosystem, as Sandy Sugar would say, that is safe. Chaos does not spawn innovation. And one of the most important things for me in this transition is not to bring chaos to the college. There are things that is changing, there's no doubt. Every new president coming in knows that. But that change has to happen in the context of trust and in the context of vulnerability. And I believe that in some ways, because I trust, these folks around the table remain vulnerable and open to do what they need to do and not to fear failure. It is important to me that they would engage me in saying, ma'am, should we actually tell these people that this particular part didn't work? And I said, well, yeah. Why wouldn't you tell people when something doesn't work, that you wouldn't know when it works and you wouldn't know what it looks like? But their willingness to tell a new president that what they are engaging in, parts of it may not work, is a huge risk. And in valuing their trust in me in that way, I think it is part of what I believe made this successful, at least for me. The other part is engaging in other conversations around the college to prepare the rest of the college for work to come. It is strange that when you're a new president walking down the hall, everybody believes that if you have direct eye contact, you're going to lose your job in 3 months. I don't know why they think that. It is a strange phenomenon. But part of my work has been building the governance system at the college to ensure that there are structures for conversation, there are venues for conversation, and that those conversations can be plain, they can be direct, and there's no consequence for truth. So I think my work has been extremely pleasant. I know of learning communities in the past decade or two that I've been working. This is a new version of learning communities, and I'm constantly impressed at how student development, student affairs, and academics can really live in the same room. I talk about the three-legged stool, the three-legged tables in which you have to make sure there's financial support that students can afford to go to college, and then you have to wrap them around student services and student support and academic support to ensure that they're successful, and then they can succeed in the classroom. Without any three of these legs, the student will fall. And what I see across to my left are all the legs. Actually, I have 5 legs, but it works out very well that way. So I thank them for their work, and thank you for listening to us today.
We'll have some time later for questions and for Q&A Community College to come up.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here representing Montgomery County Community College. I want to introduce my entire team today because they've been so terrific. The ones in the audience are probably very happy because they're not up here on the panel. I want to give a disclaimer. I heard about the award in January, and Celeste Schwartz, my Vice President for Information Technology, also knew about the award, but I kept it a secret from the rest of the college community, including the people here that are presenting. We told them yesterday as they exited the stage that they had to present. So they've been very nimble and flexible, and I just want to thank them for that. So I do want to introduce everybody. So in the back, Leon Hill, our Associate Vice President for Institutional Research and Institutional Effectiveness, Mark McFadden, one of our math faculty members, Kathy Holt-Schuring, History faculty, Wendell Griffith, the Director Coordinator of our Minority Male Mentoring Program, the student that we brought, or the alum now, and soon to be graduate of Temple University, Just Hope Cropper, thank you for being here. Celeste Schwartz, Vice President for Information Technology, Barbara Maurer, Reading faculty, Marian Graziano, math faculty member and a member of the original team that was in Denver 8 years ago when we were selected as a round 3 college. So thank you for being here, Marian. Barbara Aris, a professor in our ESL program, Michelle Cuomo, the Dean of Arts and Humanities at the college, and then with me on the panel, Barbara Lantz, math faculty, Dr. Steadimono, Vice President at our West Campus, Diane McDonald, English faculty, and Dr. Vicky Bastecki-Perez, our Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. Every one of the folks here today, whether on the panel or not, have had something to do with what I call our 20-mile march. We entered Achieving the Dream 8 years ago, and it really has been a 20-mile march. Anybody that's read the recent book by Jim Collins or any of his literature knows the 20-mile march is people set out to hike across Antarctica. And there's 2 groups of them. One group says, I'm going to go slow and steady every day, no matter what the conditions are. Another group says, I'm going to go fast when the conditions are best, and I'll rest when the conditions are harsh. And the team that ends up surviving the 20-mile march and still having energy and stamina at the end of the march to do another one is the team that goes slow and steady no matter what the terrain, whether it's a good day or a bad day, no matter the conditions. So I'm just really fortunate to have this team around me that has been willing to take the 20-mile march. Unlike Pam, I've been at Montgomery County Community College for 13 years, so I've been in the midst of this even before we became part of Achieving the Dream. Before I hand it off to the panel, I just want to give some perspectives, leadership lessons. And these are leadership lessons not just from the president, but leadership lessons for faculty who are very important to moving this work forward on our campuses, to deans, to directors, to the vice presidents. The first is to create an environment to support risk-taking. And Barbara today will tell a little bit of a story, and she had a session before this about our redesign of our Math 010 course and how she needed to be wrapped around with support to have a safe place to experiment. We have lots of stories about safe risk-taking. I'm going to say a leadership lesson for me is to embrace chaos. Pam talked about not having chaos, and while presidents are supposed to be crafting coherence, right, and keeping order, there's also something about this need to just embrace chaos. Because this is messy work, it's not linear, it's organic. And I'll tell you, some of the engagement on our campus around the difficult questions has created tension, controversy. We've all of us know, we've lived through some email chains and interactions in department meetings where we're trying to figure out the right pathway forward and reach consensus together. And that's chaos. Even showing that chaos to the Board of Trustees as a president it creates a vulnerability, but it's important. The third thing, fail fast, and I said this last night, learn when to cut losses on an effort. It's very important. We're not going to talk about any of our failures. That could probably be a whole other session. When do you cut your losses? But that's important. Go slow to go fast. And that I talked about last night too, that there's a sense of urgency to our work, but we have to have patience, and building consensus to build a culture of change is very important. And then the last leadership lesson, plan to plan. And my team knows I say this all the time. Plan to plan. What does that mean? That means looking past and thinking about the unintended consequences and mapping out who interventions will touch when and what might happen that we need to begin to plan for. Plan to plan. One of the takeaways, I think, across the stories here is that we did not do enough work with our academic advisors on the ground. They influence so much of student decision making. So when you put in learning interventions or course interventions, they have to, the advisors need to know what the intervention is really designed to do, who it's targeted for, and why. And so those are, from my perspective, 6 leadership lessons that map very nicely to the 5 tenets of achieving the dream's organizational redesign messaging. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first panelist, and I think that is Barbara Lantz.
Dr. Stout. Again, I'm Barbara Lantz, and I teach in the math department. So I'm going to talk to you about what the math department did from the beginning of Achieving the Dream up to the present time. If you look at the chart up here, probably not the first thing we did. Some of these were simultaneous, but we replaced our original arithmetic course, which was our first developmental math course. We call it Math 10, but it's arithmetic and pre-algebra. We replaced that traditional course with a concept-based discovery course. And we found that when we piloted this course for a few semesters, students did significantly better than in the traditional course. It was started in 2008. In 2011, the course went full scale at the college, and every semester the course has done at least 20% higher success rates than the traditional course. That's why the course went full scale. So if you look up at the graphic, you can see the blue is the concepts course, and in the beginning the ends were very low because it was just a pilot, but you can see as the semesters went on that there was still a significant difference between this course and the traditional arithmetic course. So the department voted to go full scale, and we've been full scale with this course since fall 2011, and the course is now taught at 11 other institutions in the United States. Around the same time, the college, being part of Achieving the Dream, was listening to what other schools were saying and learning that there are students that place on the cusp when it comes to placement testing, that maybe if they had got a few points higher, they would be in the next course. And so instead of them being in the developmental course for 2 semesters, we created a few other courses for these students. And here we really needed help with advising and placement because it was important that students were put into the correct courses. So we created a 2-week refresher arithmetic course, which, you know, if you've been around Achieving the Dream, other people have also done that. And if a student got a certain score on the placement test, they could choose to take that before the semester began, save themselves 2 hours of time and 2 hours of tuition. And we also created a 4-semester beginning algebra course, which a student, if they got a certain score on the placement test, did not have to take 2 developmental courses, they could just take 1 developmental course. And the students that placed into these accelerated sections, you can look at the graphics there, did very well. So accelerating those students that were on the borderline was really a wise thing to do for the students. And in light of this, we've just this semester begun a college level 4-credit course in which if a student places into beginning algebra at the upper end, they are now going right into college level math with a 4-credit college level course. So we've kind of continued this tradition. I think advisors are probably tired of all of our new little initiatives because it does take a lot of work to make sure the students are placed in the correct class. But everything we've done so far in the form of acceleration and course redesign seems to be a positive trend. So overall, developmental math placement, you can see that it has decreased from fall 2008 to the present time, fall 2012. So students placing into developmental is decreasing. And the initiatives that we're doing have attributed to this decrease in the number of students that require 1 or 2 levels of developmental math. Okay. Next is Diane, who will talk to you about Sorry. We also did work with our SAT scores so that if students got a certain SAT score, they did not have to take the placement test and they could go right into college math. That would also attribute to the last slide, the decrease in students going into developmental math.
English also focused on the placement testing. When we realized that 40% of our students were placing directly into developmental classes, a committee got together of English faculty and looked at what was going on with our placement, and we noticed that using the AccuPlacer test, our placement cutoff score was a lot higher than other schools. And not only that, according to what AccuPlacer said, the students were being placed in developmental with skills that we thought were appropriate for a college level composition course. So our first step was we lowered our AccuPlacer score from a 101 to an 86. Then we offered an SAT exemption for anyone who gets a 500 on the writing portion. And then we also switched to a retest. For any student placed into developmental, they had the opportunity to take a retest. And it used to be a hand-rated kind of essay test. We switched to right placer. And at the same time, when we switched to right placer, we lowered that score as well, so that students who were starting to show proficiency, but maybe not there yet, would place into college level class, to college level English. We took a big risk because we didn't know what would happen with our numbers. You can see that we greatly reduced the numbers of students placing into developmental English, and at the same time, our success rates did not change. They remained pretty constant. And then in fall 2012, we switched to the right placer exam as our sole exam for placement, and we kept that lower cutoff score, so even decreased the number of students placing into developmental as well. And the data still shows that students are succeeding at the same rate, or very close to the same rate anyway, as they did previously. So let's see, in fall 2011, the overall success rate for English 101 students was 69%. So the change still had not significantly impacted our success rates. That's it.
Good afternoon. So while all these conversations were taking place, and my colleagues have just given you a snapshot of what was taking place in the classroom, we also had conversations really as we mined the data, which way and that way. It was evident that there was a cohort of our students that were not doing well at all. Either way you looked at it, and those were African American males. So they were beneficiaries of these great innovations that were taking place in the classroom. But we also, it was very clear to us that they needed support even outside the classroom, just dealing with life issues, learning how to be a student, coping with the difficulties and the challenges that they were facing on an everyday basis. And so we introduced the Minority Male Mentoring Program. And as we look at that, and as you can see from the PowerPoint, 18 to 22% of African American males opted into the program. It was strictly voluntary, but once they opted in, we made sure that we got a commitment from them and continue to do that. And so, what is it we found out? We found out that students in this program, in the mentoring program, persist at a much higher level than those who are not. And really, this is the college, this is the community college, all of us at Montgomery County Community College embracing this student success initiative. So, you may ask, where do the mentors come from? They come from the ranks of the faculty, administrators, support staff, folks that really care about these students and want to invest their time. So, strictly voluntary on part of my colleagues. And one of the things we also saw was that our African American students, especially in developmental coursework, where their placement into developmental coursework was declining, steadily declining since we started this work. So some of the lessons we have learned along the way have encouraged us to expand this program. So the mentoring program has been expanded to not only African American males, but Hispanic and Latino males, as well as African American females and Hispanic and Latino females. So it's all that group of students now that have come into this program. So we are, I always look at the community colleges, we are the people's college, and so very important to develop our relationships with our high school. We have a robust, and we continue to really invest into dual enrollment and increasing our high school yield rates, making sure that we have strong relationships with our high schools in our county. And so we have a strong dual enrollment program, and we have also noticed that our dual enrollment continues to increase, and as a matter of fact, since 2006, it increased by 32%. Students' dual enrollment increased by 32%. I think that is mighty significant. And also in terms of penetration into the high schools, our yield rate steadily continues to rise each year as well. I think one important note is that of those high school students coming to the college, more are placing directly into college level math and English, even as Professor McDonald stated. So from 2004 to 2013, there was an 11% increase in math. So from 42% to 43% going into college level math. And then there was a 63% increase from 27% to 90%. Again, as a result of this collective dialogue that as an institution we've been engaged in, and the changes that we've been making, and the risks, as President Stout noted, some of the risks that we've taken. Persistence. If indeed we're going to get our students in this pipeline and get them to graduation, we want to make sure that they persist. And again, as an institution, our persistence rates are up. College-wide, really across Australia. College-wide, they are up. Just one highlight. Students returning last spring into the fall 2013, the persistence rate jumped by 10%, the highest for us as a college in the last 10 years. So, I've given you a really quick snapshot of our work at the Montgomery County Community College.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to present on behalf of the faculty the changes that we've made in the academic affairs area in regards to processes and procedures to extend and advance our student access and success agenda. Some of these are particularly transformational for us, and you'll be able to see, and what the representation is to show that they're really not independent entities, that they're really integrated, that they are integrated and dependent upon one another, and they are systemic within the organization. These are not one-time process and procedures that are changing, but this is systematic, part of the fabric of our institution. One of the things Academic Affairs did in 12-13 was have a college-wide conversation regarding our strategic planning process. This was the first time that we fully engaged beyond our unit, the entire college community of staff, faculty, and administration, having collective conversations, which we called Mustang Challenges. Our college Mustang is our mascot, where we invited individuals to come in and help our faculty and our administration and academic affairs not only gauge where our program's strengths were, but also seeking opportunities for renewal and investment. It was an important conversation when we engaged our student affairs advisors and counselors who are working one-on-one. We also used a significant amount of data, our regional data and our county data, to help look and gauge where employment opportunities would be, as well as the future for our students upon graduation. We also have a fairly new general education core curriculum, which our faculty was highly engaged in college-wide conversation for nearly 6 years, where they talked about and strategized on where the 21st century learner would be. And our faculty celebrated the launch of the new core curriculum in 2011 with a competency-based, comprehensive approach to education. This also includes and supports the advancement of our student access and success goals because it provides and recognizes prior learning opportunities that students bring to the table. It also integrates our credit and non-credit instructional pathways. Students from our non-credit or industry programs that have industry credentials that are recognized for the competencies that those students bring to the academic environment, and help to establish clear pathways for students, both full-time and part-time students. This year, we're in the process of piloting new academic program reviews, our 5-year reviews as part of our systematic review process. Some of the faculty on our team here at ATD are part of that process. The 5-year academic program review went through substantive change. I'm pleased to report that we no longer use a one-size-fits-all model anymore. We have 3 pathways for our faculty. They can do in-depth data analysis and reflection based on the current status of the program. Upon preliminary review, they can move into another substantive change accelerated model so that they can bring their colleagues together and begin making significant curricular changes to ensure relevance and value in the academic portfolio. We also have a pathway for those programs that are programmatically accredited, that have already gone through programmatic review by an external body. In the review process, all indications are pointing to the high value of our portfolio, also reframing and maximizing our student progression and completion agenda. We use significant amount of data in that particular process. And one of the unique features we believe is that we've shifted from a historical perspective to a forward-thinking document. So faculty are using their annual program report cards that the faculty coordinators complete on an annual basis, talking about where they're at, what resources are needed to move the program forward, looking at those documents, but in the program review, really reflecting on the future. Where is that program going, and how do we get there to meet, again, our student needs, as well as our transfer partner requirements, as well as the industry expectations. Academic Affairs at Montgomery County Community College works hand in hand with our institutional research team, as well as our information technology infrastructure. I think in the last couple of years, we've pushed our data analytics, and our faculty have embraced and celebrated using analytics not only at the course level through Blackboard Learn, but also our new tools that we have to help them understand what's going on inside the classroom with courses and linking that to the program analytics. We have an academic dashboard that is in a prototype phase right now that our deans can look at the health and viability of their program, both from a student success perspective as well as a fiscal perspective. We also develop a course calculator that helps with our scheduling, ensuring that we have the appropriate clock hours for instruction. We have a variety of modalities of instruction, not only full semesters, but we offer our students accelerated learning options through 3.5-week course delivery, 8-week course delivery, 6-week course delivery, and 12-week course delivery. We also have a significant investment in partnerships. K through 12 partnerships is higher education partnerships. This year we are in our inaugural year with the Gateway to College National Initiative, working with our partner high schools with their at-risk students to help them graduate while providing a scaffolding of support at the college to have them be successful at the college, taking college-level courses while fulfilling their high school requirements. We also have, as Steady said, a very robust dual enrollment initiative, and we've also introduced new academies to the college, where we've used our platform of dual enrollment and have theme initiatives. We have academies with some of our high schools in the STEM areas. We have some in the health science areas, and we have a new one on the horizon in entrepreneurship. We also, for the first time, had solidified and executed an international partnership with an individual school to be able to provide our students with an international, seamless, core-to-core dual admission transfer opportunity. We also have at our West Campus, a university center, where we house baccalaureate, master's, and doctoral programs, not only for our graduates, but for our region. In January, we executed a partnership and deepened our relationship with Drexel University, where we'll be beginning in fall 14, offering Drexel University degree programs in full face value at our central campus in Bluebell. Not only will we be able to provide the students with another quality educational experience, we're able to leverage our faculty resources, have opportunities for deep and meaningful integration inside and outside the classroom, but also we've been able to garner more than a 25% reduction in tuition for the completion of the baccalaureate degree. We also have, in the past few years, had deep transformation and reform in policies. You've heard a little bit from our faculty about some of the policies that have been impacted at Montgomery County Community College. The one that I want to bring to your attention in this brief presentation is our academic readiness policy. 2 years ago, when we had our transformational change with our core curriculum, our faculty decided that it was time to align our placement and testing policy with a comprehensive approach. So they moved out of their comfort zone and extended, in many cases, and validated experiences equivalent to the placement testing, and in some cases, better predictors for success, while ensuring and safeguarding the academic standards that we celebrate as an institution. These exemptions, in 1 year alone, have touched nearly 3,000 students last year with those exemptions. So it's provided students direct access and gateway into college-level courses. In closing, I want to reiterate that our comprehensive integrative approach has been very successful at Montgomery County Community College, but this is under the leadership of our faculty. We also have an all-hands-in approach with our administration and our staff of looking at our students collectively so that we can make the deepest most meaningful impact during this journey. At this time, I'll turn the podium back over to Dr. Stell.
Just have a closing comment, because the journey, the 20-mile march continues, and from my perspective, the 20-mile march needs to get deeper with faculty. We really still have a lot of work to do with faculty engagement, especially part-time faculty. There's an article that I would refer to you, find time to read it. It's in the New Yorker magazine by Adwo Mwande. He wrote the Checklist Manifesto and has written a number of other really provocative articles in the New Yorker. And the article talks about innovation and why some innovations take longer than other innovations. And he goes back to Civil War and surgeons who did amputations. And then he talks about, of course, in that kind of just raw amputation surgery was around for a long time, and then he moves into when antiseptics were discovered, and how that was such a great discovery, but it took so long for the medical community to embrace antiseptics. And the reason was because, well, obviously antiseptics made an amputation experience a lot better for a patient. But it created a lot more work for the doctor. And so this great invention did not spread very fast. And I read that and thought about the things that make so much sense for our students, but we have to work with faculty to get better about how this is a student support move, and it's not going to damage academic integrity, and can we accelerate our thinking about adopting this technique a little bit sooner. And the article is really good, and I really highly recommend it to faculty and faculty leaders in the room, because I think there are some lessons to be learned from that. But I do believe that's the next horizon, and I think that will be the continuing work of achieving the dream. Thank you.
Thank you both colleges very, very much. So I want to open it up now for any questions. Do folks have any questions from either college? Yes, sir.
Both colleges talked a lot about what they did to win the award. Can you talk a little bit about the process of applying for the award?
So Celeste or others can chime in on this. We have applied a couple of times, and not every time we were eligible to apply. I think the first year we didn't apply, the second year we did, and we thought we had a pretty strong application. The third year we didn't because we were discouraged, because we thought our first year was strong. And then we applied again last year. And it wasn't until we decided to move to a team-based approach, like a really, really team-based approach that built on the work of Diane, who I think single-handedly the year before had crafted our application as the faculty chair of our student success team. When we brought everybody to the table and really took and pulled apart our work and pulled it back together, that we were able to craft a really good application. And it really was very data-informed, and we just put a lot of people on task, and Celeste Schwartz, our Vice President for Information Technology, took the responsibility to pull it together. So for us, it's been a learning experience to go through the application process. You probably had earlier success. I said, persistence and failure is part of the story. Actually, I wisely delegated. I delegated it to, actually they came to me. Actually, Lori Catalozzi, our Dean for Learning Communities, and my Associate Vice President came to me. And we all sort of knew, because we had just gotten data back from our data consultants about the rate. of increase. And as I mentioned before, part of the agony is, well, how much do we tell? You know, how honest should we be? And I think being the honest broker, you know, of really truly telling the whole story. The story is not done. And what these two good folks did was to basically mobilize everybody they work with to tell the story. And I think without that common voice, without the team approach that Karen talked about, it would not have been as successful, I think. Thanks for that. She says, no, I don't want that.
Thank you both.
Any other questions? Yes.
This is more kind of detailed question about your community college. Just out of curiosity, for the learning communities, like we don't have learning communities per se, but are your students full-time or part-time, or does it matter? Are they all mixed together? How does it work?
Can you hear me without the mic?
Yes.
I get it. 66% of our students are part-time, and our learning communities serve both full-time and part-time students. Up until about a year ago, we were serving about 70% of the students in learning communities were full-time students because we instituted a requirement that our first-time full-time students would enroll in a learning community seminar in the first year, which was a key decision the college made as a whole. That was a grassroots decision that our faculty and staff came together and made. That process took about a year. But over the past year, thanks to the Catalyst Fund, we are a Catalyst Fund institution, one of 4 colleges nationwide that's scaling our initiative even further. We're now reaching more to most of our part-time students over the next few years. I have a question. What is the name of the author that you cited?
Attila Blonde. ATWULGWAND. Well, Blonde, in case anybody out there didn't hear. Resistance. Any other questions? Well, before you go, also, I have a question. I'd like you to, you all mentioned the importance of leadership in college. But as we all know from community college work, leadership takes all kinds of forms, and leadership is usually throughout the college. It doesn't reside in an office. Leadership doesn't reside in an office. It resides in many places in the classroom, in student lounges, in the back halls, etc. So I would like whomever, either the presidents of the college or any representative of the college, to talk about how leadership is perceived at your college and how it is managed at your college. I know it's a tough question, but I think it came up so much in your conversation, in your presentation. I'd like to hear how you, as the culture of your college, how it manages, how it looks at leadership. Because leadership really does matter. Anybody want to take a crack?
I'll take a crack at this and then others can chime in. I think that we're working hard at Montgomery on what we have called, the faculty might not recognize this label, but what we call talent management, and trying to really create that kind of culture, especially in the administrative area. And we've taken on a number of new initiatives around building the leadership competencies of administrators. From the way we overhauled our performance management, we overhauled our evaluation system to be a performance management system, and one of the 8 behavioral competencies is very focused on student success. So every administrator now is evaluated on that competency. There's another competency around data-informed decision making. So trying to take the values into the administrative ranks. We also have a leadership academy, and we've had that model for a while at faculty, staff, and administrators, so that we have a good core of people that can move into other positions. Kathy, you might want to talk about the Gateway Academy, which is a leadership opportunity for faculty to take the lead in owning their own course redesign. That's another kind of model we're using.
So one of the things in the Student Success Committee work that we've been doing as part of our Achieving the Dream is really now starting to narrow down and look at more subject area or kind of much more specific focused areas. And one of the things we've been doing is the Gateway Academy, which is really allowing faculty members to look at their subject areas, to think about possibly blocks to student learning, or how we can, look at things in a new and innovative way to encourage learning in a different way. And I think for a faculty member to have that kind of, trust from the administration to think outside of the box, to implement a pilot, testing out an idea, and then having an opportunity to bring something to scale, I think that speaks to the strength of the institution and, of course, the commitment to faculty engagement and growth.
Thank you. Anybody from Rubber?
I'll start. Karen, I love what you're doing. I'm going to steal so much of that. It's funny because we had just started to do unit planning on our campus, annual unit planning, and I swear it looks just like that. So, my predecessor had been at the college for 16 and a half years. Dr. Mary Fifield started Achieving the Dream at the college, and there was a great deal of what I would call transformational change when she initiated it. I came into the college at the midst, I think, of that transformation. And I think different leaders going into the life of an institution have different roles. If I had been there for 10 years, my role would be very different. Whereas I'm coming into the middle of a sort of a growth curve. You talked about good to great, we all talk about that growth curve, that when you reach the top of that growth and begin to descend, you have to grow again, so that you can maintain that rhythm. And in some ways, we're not at the top of that growth curve yet. We're reaching there. So my goal right now is to be a hedgehog, right? I need to be consistent and have that hedgehog principle over and over and over again until the college has built enough trust in this transition. And then that growth path then needs to be restarted again. I really do believe that institutions have a life of their own. They lived before I did, and they will be there when I'm gone. So part of it is not so much to impose a vision, but to really see where the institution is and support the vision to grow. A lot of what you talk about in terms of the gateway programs and the leadership programs is exactly where Bunker Hill will be heading next. Talent, having sustainability in your talent pool is really difficult, particularly in a college where we're 14,000 students and multiple administrators. So we're beginning to build that talent from the department chair up, so that we will have sustainable both on the part of faculty governance leadership as well as administrative leadership. You were going to say something? She was just nodding.
I have been at Bunker Hill Community College for about 26 years, and I was hired by the founding president of the institution. So needless to say, I've seen it go through a lot of changes and a lot of iterations over the past decades. When we started the Learning Communities Initiative some years ago, it was met with a lot of resistance from a lot of faculty, to be very, very honest with you. And it was only after we were able to prove to them through the data that this was really, really working and really, really helping our students that they started to slowly buy in. One of the most difficult things to change in an institution, any institution, is its culture. So there are people who are still at the college who were, there from the beginning, from 1973, they're still there teaching. And they have slowly come around. And I really, really was one of the faculty members who really bought into this initiative because I knew that we needed to really, really focus on this new demographic at the institution and also to pull in the students who are marginalized. So when we were laughing, I think at dinner or a few days ago, we were talking about YouTube from Bunker Hill Community College from about 1979, I think, and 1980, and you look at all the students in the corridors, and they're all white. You don't see any brown faces, and then you walk through the B building lobby now, and sometimes I walk through and I start smiling. I say, this is like walking through an HBCU, And it's like, so things have changed, and there's been a lot of resistance, but there's been a lot of very, very positive change. And the changes come because of the results that we have been able to realize and the data that drives that directive.
I would add to that we put a real focus early on collaborative leadership. So when we first, our learning committee started through Title III grant in their most recent incarnation, We invited 86 faculty and staff to come to the table and to sit on design teams at the very, very early stages, so that they owned this initiative from the start. For those people, there was no buy-in necessary, they were bought in. Now Lloyd's talking about the other 300 or 400 faculty that were phase two. But I think that first round of faculty was large enough and included some real critical decision makers at every level of the institution that it worked. We had chairs, we had junior faculty, we had seasoned faculty, and we had frontline staff, and we had more veteran staff. So we had a huge range. Also, in terms of the processes we set up early on, we really had rich dialogue that showed people that their ideas mattered, that we were listening to those voices, and we gave people real decision-making power. So the leadership arose at every level of the institution because it was able to. We gave that freedom and that space. And really that's what really sparked, I would say, the faculty ownership of the initiative.
I'd just like to add at Montgomery County Community College, we have a shared governance process that has undergone transformation as well. And we have 4 all-college governance committees, and it's led by faculty. We have their faculty chairs, and we've been really working very hard collectively of engaging all of key stakeholders. We have students involved, staff involved, administrators, but it's primarily our faculty, and that's both full-time faculty and part-time faculty at the institution. It's across the college, across our campuses, with our academic divisions, and there's been a lot of change and a lot of leadership that has gone on through that and initiatives moving forward. We've gone through transformation even from a communication perspective. General faculty meetings, the faculty chairs are empowered to lead conversation with their colleagues. We use those faculty meetings very differently than we had in the past. In the past, they were more information exchange and going through a list of topics, where now we have deep and meaningful conversation, again, led by the faculty through our governance process. We've also changed some of our college-wide communications regarding faculty governance. We've gone to what seems to be simple as a template that we use for all governance. We call it a governance alert. We've been inundated with emails at times at the institution. So our faculty said, we need to be able to quickly recognize something from our governance committee. So we came up with a governance template that has been extremely successful this year for all of our committees. We also have a governance newsletter that our chairs put out on a monthly basis through my office, and they just put snippets and updates for their colleagues. We have email addresses for the governance committees and different, again, very simple solutions that have made, I think, a profound difference this past year to help move, again, these initiatives forward. The other thing that I wanted to mention, our faculty has been in a 2-year conversation, again, led by faculty, about faculty evaluation. We put together a task force, and that was charged by the president of the college, and I helped to appoint that task force, again, of faculty. Our faculty at our college includes counselors and librarians, as well as advisors and teaching faculty. We looked at part-time, full-time. We went from soup to nuts, from looking at every job description, and then developed tools that were appropriate for the 21st century educator. Key components now are using data. What student success strategies are the faculty using? And that's something that beginning in fall 14 that we will be taking to scale. Right now, our newest full-time faculty cadre, we have a small group that came through the hiring process for fall 13. So they're our pilot group. They're experiencing the whole process right now and been providing very valuable feedback. And right now, we're preparing to launch, again, full scale to our faculty. So again, we tied it to our strategic agenda for student access and success.
Thank you very much. Okay, I know you're all dying to go to the book signing, so I don't want to hold everyone up, but I want to thank all the team members from both colleges, Montgomery County Community College and Buck